I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside, it's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, "No, no, 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 we're going to do this." And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
Sometimes it takes a different approach to help you unlock your true potential. Capella University's game-changing FlexPath format helps you learn at your own pace and fit earning a degree into your life. From before you enroll to after you graduate, you'll be supported by people who are invested in your success so you can pursue your goals knowing that help is available if you need it. Imagine your future differently at capella.edu.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show. Today on the James Altucher Show.
Ed Latimore, professional boxer, physicist, chess player, social media guru, and influencer. This guy has such a great, well-balanced life about how he looks at things, how he learns things, how he conquers his comfort zone, whether he's being hit in the face or doing differential equations or helping people with their social media. It was such a great pleasure to talk to him. We had so many interesting stories, and even towards the end, we got into what I'll call the power of annoyance, how being annoying could become useful in various situations. But along the way, we talked about so many things that I'm interested in. So I know you'll enjoy this. Give it up for Ed Latimore, and here's the podcast.
A classic, even before I started, because now like you can use like CT art, which is really nice to run through things when you're like, there's a phone app and a desktop. But before that, because this book is old, I had a copy of it. I've had like 3 copies of it because I keep, when I move, I like lose it or something. Or I think, oh, I'm going to take a break from chess. You know, it can be frustrating. And then I go, okay, I'm back into it. Let me get my book again, because it's just they're just good motifs to go through, and it's really interesting to do it not with a digital thing, you know, because OTB chess is like really where it's at. I've found out it's really just a different environment than playing over the board.
Totally.
And using a physical copy as opposed to, you know, the app levels is fun. You know, I enjoy it, and it's a big cool book. You know, it goes great with the motif of my room, which is, you know, chess and Tom and stuff.
You know, I have this theory that, you know, there's all these things to study. Like there's openings, end games, strategy stuff, tactics. And I think really if you're just good at tactics, you'll be a good chess player. Like you could probably just study tactics all the way up to 2200 without knowing openings, end games, or anything like that.
You know what? People keep telling me this, and there's a book by this guy, I think Michael LaPlaza, and it was like rapid chess improvement for beginners or for adults, and the whole idea of the book was just go through tactical problems over and over and over again. And when I did this for a while, my over the not over the board, my digital rating on chess.com, it went up to a certain point, and I ran into a wall, and I was like, "What am I doing wrong?" I think you figure out certain ideas. You don't learn them formally. You quite literally you just absorb them off the board, and tactics allow and put you in positions to catch them, to take advantage of them, because most other players, certainly at our lower level, I'm a lot weaker than you, they don't know them either, so they don't even know how to deal with them. But you just kind of stumble into them and realize, okay, it's a fork, or that's I can put you in this wrong, and it's not clear to the other player because they don't even know what they're looking for. But if you study the tactics, I guess you just get a feel for all these positions and how they work and what they mean. It really is the epitome of the idea of reality and application being more valuable than theory and speculation.
That's a good way to put it. Like, because the theory will change, right? Like, what's the best opening? What's not the best opening? What's the popular opening? But the tactics never change. That's like fundamental to the game. Like when you get problems in chess, they don't say white to move and make a good opening move. They say white to move
Right.
and win. And I remember one time I was living with this guy, Elias Zamora, and his brother was 11 years old and probably about 25 or 2600 strength. He
Wow.
was Jorge Zamora. For a brief moment, he was like the best prodigy in the world. And then he inexplicably gave up chess. But he was like beating grandmasters in speed chess, no problem. But it was speed chess. He knew tactics inside out. So at 11 years old, it's like he had perfect vision. He didn't need to know all the openings. He was like 2,500 strength. He was the strongest player on the Internet Chess Club for a while, even after he retired from
No
chess. Like
kidding.
better than all the grandmasters, everything. And it's just from tactics.
That's really one that's impressive as heck. But two, that echoes something that my teacher explains to me. My teacher's an international master by the name of Eric Kislik, based out of Hungary. And he says when he's coaching kids, it's very you can just give them puzzles and they'll just do them, because up until like the age of like 8 or 9, they can't even grasp subtle nuances, positional ideas, strategic themes. They just don't mean anything. They
Yeah.
can't put them together, but they can really they're really good at following the cause and effect, kind of forcing moves, firing the nose, and seeing how those things work out, and playing that kind of game. Like he was a correspondent with a teacher, he told me, and he couldn't quite understand. He's like, what the teacher said. He said, okay, when I have students, young kids, I just teach them the opening patterns. I don't even tell them like what the theory is or anything. Just teach them the steps to go, and if he does this, do that, do this, do that. And that kind of works for like the first 10 or 12
Yeah.
moves before the variations become incalculable to the average person, or really even the great masters.
Yeah.
They just know. But when you're dealing with a kid, they're not thinking in terms of space or imbalances or putting together outposts for knights or anything like that. They're just like, oh, that's a fun thing to attack. Does it make more sense to attack that or attack that? And this seems really, I mean, maybe not basic, but elementary. But when you look at what the computer recommends, a lot of times I go over my games, and almost 100% of the time when I make a move that is just ranked good, the better move is one that is more active, that attacks something. So there's a lot of truth in this idea of just coming out and seeing how quickly you can attack, and you can go really far into encounter people who know how to parry the attacks, deflect them, defend, set themselves up to not be attacked as easily, and really they have a more solid understanding of the game. But until you get to that point, you can just bulldoze quite a lot of players just understanding the tactical themes and not even really understanding them. That not understand is too much. You can just go far and make moves. Just boom, 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 check, 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 and whatever you can figure out is what you can see.
I think even, like if you look at the opening tactically, you get it that, okay, let's take the center of the board. So that means I'll have more tactical opportunities. Let's get my knight in the center. Let's hold my queen back, but give it, lines of sight so that it can get out there fast. You could even figure out the opening from tactical kind of ideas. So I don't know. It's like right now when I try to improve, I'll look at books like that book behind you, Chess, or there's another book called The Woodpecker Method, which is just problems. And this guy went from 2100 to Grandmaster just on that book.
Wow, that is wow, one book. But you know what I'm finding right now, because I'm like stuck at the 16 to 1700 level, and from what I've been told is it and it feels this way too. That it's just a few little tweaks and understanding, and then you shoot past it and you look and go, okay, how did I ever like not know this stuff? And
Yeah.
how did I ever not understand that that's a bad move versus this one? When like weaker player is gonna, what's the difference? What's the difference? But that's what I really enjoy about the game is how it continues to refine how you approach a problem. I think the difference between the best move and one that's just good is just taking into consideration more factors on the board. And the more mature you get, the more you're mentally mature. The more mentally mature you become at the board, the better you're able to consider all of these things and bring them together without getting confused or overwhelmed, and go, okay, this is a good move because it deals with a problem, but this is a better one because it deals with a problem and creates one. And then this is like the double exclamation point move, because not only does it deal with a problem, creates a problem, it also like improves my strategy or sets up a mating pattern or something like that.
Well, let me ask you because, and there's, I hope you have time. Well, this is going to go more than an hour. Are you okay?
Oh yeah, man, I'm all good.
All right, good. Because I've been looking forward to this, and you and I have like incredibly different backgrounds, but I feel like a lot of similarities as well. And but it's interesting about chess because I imagine it's somewhat similar to boxing. And I mean, if you remember, obviously you remember the Wu-Tang Clan. They
Oh
even had
yeah.
their first or second album was The Mystery of Chess Boxing, and they were into both because I think with any martial art, and I'll include boxing as a martial art, I feel like there's a chess-like component, not just where you're thinking of moves ahead, but you're also trying to control the center. You're trying to set you're trying to set the narrative of the game so that it's not set for you.
I wrote an article about this a while ago. I need to like re-edit it and put it back on my website, because it's just really interesting how the two are similar in terms of what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it more specifically. Like when my coach was teaching me, okay, here's the idea: you need to make sure you cut off the ring and reduce the opponent's space. And all I could think is like, man, that's like getting your rook to the seventh rank, right? If you can get him up
Yeah.
against the back ropes and just keep him there and move, you have a much greater chance of winning the fight. And in the middle game, when the fight is going on and both fighters are fresh before one makes a tactical error, like stepping into a corner when he doesn't have to, without a proper knowledge of counter positioning, or how to, basically turn and put the other guy in the corner. You're fighting in the middle, and who can dominate and get center control, who can control the ring. And we actually call this ring generalship. Who is winning the fight, even if they're not landing more blows. And you can win a fight by making sure the other person is ineffective in the fight as well. Every time they throw something, you deflect it, you defend it, you parry it, and then you counter. And even if your counters don't pack a punch, you're still gaining little bits of control, and then over time it just wears down. Time is analogous to the number of moves in a ring, but in a fight, because as time goes on, the stronger fighter typically emerges, not because of his skill, but because of his endurance and what he's been doing. The little stuff you can't see, the small subtle things that the average fight fan, I think, can appreciate. The little shots inside, or every time he throws a punch, you deflect it and it hits on your hip, so he wants to stop throwing that punch because he's tired of banging his knuckle against the hip bone. And sure, it hurts you, but it hurts him a little more because he's not trying to do it, and it's just over and over. And by the end of the fight, well, more like the middle, early beginnings of the fight, we'll say like rounds 6 to 8 in a really long fight, you can start to see how a fighter has really been just getting the inside, the interior kind of battle just beaten up, and then eventually the stronger fighter tends to emerge. Now you get your knockouts, which are like checkmates, but the better you become, just like in chess, the rarer those are. And instead, you gain a small little space advantage or a small pawn advantage, and then you just ride that to the end.
Yeah, no, you mentioned this a lot in your books and your tweets and blogs and stuff. The idea of incremental improvement, and it happens at a macro level and a micro level. So it happens in general. Like every day, I want to improve a little. I'll practice something more in boxing or chess or whatever. But in a single game or in a single fight, the idea of accumulating small advantages, I don't think people appreciate that enough. Like in chess. A lot of it is about, blocking the other person, not defending, but blocking the other person from taking offense. So you're not playing defense, but you're offensively just, they want to move there. I'm just going to block it. So, and you restrict their movements more and more. Like I'll tell you one quick story. I was playing Kasparov in a game, just like a casual game. And he it was one of those situations where he has everything to lose and nothing to gain by playing me. And if he loses, it's embarrassing for him, and if he wins, it's no big deal because he's like the best player in history. And in the beginning of the game, he plays this. I play an opening that is kind of rare, but of course he's Kasparov. He knows everything. He plays some move that I think is out of order, and I try to take advantage of it. And within a few moves, I realize, but no one else watching realizes except for him, of course, I have the game is already over. Like I have no more. I don't even have a strategy. I can't even have a bad plan. I have like no plan that I can make. And he just like overwhelms me after that. He like accumulated some small advantages and then I was stuck. I was so restricted. And I imagine the same thing happens in boxing. Like if you just sort of figure out some way to dominate without even landing a punch, like you say, you're going to win.
That reminds me of a fight. It was my 10th fight. It was against a guy named Jamal Woods, who was a physically, I'm a small or was a small heavyweight to begin with at only 6'1", and I think my fighting weight was like 220 when I was at my healthiest and strongest. But then that's minuscule, man. I shouldn't even have been a heavyweight in reality. I should have realistically been a cruiserweight. But fighting this guy and he's like 6'4". I think he was 250 and like strong, not like 250 sloppy. And I went into this fight, and you go in every fight, and how every fighter deals with that fear is their own prerogative. Mine is to just go out there and fight, and then eventually get a hit or get hit. And once I get hit, I'm like, okay, I'm not fragile. I'm not going to go down. We're okay. But I'm fighting him. And I realized something probably in the second round. I won the fight on the scorecard pretty decisively, but I realized that as long as I kept busy, he didn't have an answer for a jab, which is not a powerful killer move. But as long as I did that, even if I didn't follow up properly, he was going to be lost, right? And I knew that he won almost all of his fights by knockout, right? Not a points guy because he's big and strong. I said, if I just keep doing this, I'll survive. I'll be okay. And by the third round, I said, wow, there is no way I'm going to lose this fight short of an outright robbery. Like I don't think he knew it yet, but I knew it. And all I had to do was continue that because I had established one. I mean, plus overall, I just knew more about boxing. He was a lot stronger than me, but I knew more and was the better fighter. But his only way to win was neutralized, which was knocking me out. And he didn't realize it yet, but he kept trying it. And every time he tried it, he lost a little more energy, became a little more ineffective. Yep. All I'm doing is stand behind the jab, making sure my chin is tucked and everything. So in the off chance that he does get one through, my chin is covered by my shoulder, and I won the fight. And I always think about the fight because I look back, and it's like when you survive a near miss, you don't really appreciate it at the moment, but you look back and go, man, that could have been really bad. And I've just like looked at his fight since then, and I see what he's done. I'm like, man, that guy really could have like put me down and hurt me. It's a good thing I knew that. And those are the things you don't even think about during the fight, because if you think about them, you're probably going to succumb to them. that's just how it works, because thinking is slow, and then you feed into your fears, and then you're not as aggressive as you should be, or maybe you're over aggressive. Either way, you're not in the clearest space to be in when you start thinking about all the things that can go wrong. The difference in chess, and it's fun this way, is that when things go badly, you tend to be able to walk away from the board, so you're not too worried. You just looked at it and went, man, this is terrible. I thought I had him, and turns out it is just not so.
But I guess with boxing, you could end up in a hospital as opposed to just crying in your bed at night.
Yeah. That's a risk you take every fight. In fact, I did just publish this on my site, where I was talking about, what the training is like for a fight. And one of the things that I mentioned that a lot of people aren't aware of is that before every fight, you have to sign this waiver. And the waiver effectively says that if you are like seriously injured or killed in the fight, as long as it happens within the rules of the contest, then there's nothing that can be done. That's unfortunate for you, and it happens. Guys get killed in fighting. It's a really dangerous sport. Like, and I don't even like calling it a sport, because sports, people don't usually try to hurt each other in a sport. It's more of something you do when you lose your temper. But in boxing and in MMA, that is how the fight is scored, how the contest is scored. And the unfortunate side effect of that method of scoring is that it comes with a pretty big negative externality. You can sustain pretty permanent damage. I knew a guy that was 17-0 and had to retire because he detached his retina in his last win. His win, not a loss. So that's the risk we take every time. And as much as I loved fighting, and as much as I got out of it, I don't think I would ever go back and get ready for a fight. My life is too fine now. Now I can look at things. It's like when you're a kid, learning how to I watched these kids learn how to ski once, and they weren't even using poles. They were just on their skis, flying down the hill, no care in the world, because they didn't have a concept of being hurt yet. I have a concept now of being hurt, and I got stuff to lose, and I'm like, I don't think I want to do that again. But who knows? Maybe I'll wake up one day and change my mind.
Well, you were 13-1-1 at your retirement, right? 13 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. And what was, this is a naive question, but what was the most you were hurt during those 15 bouts?
The most I was hurt during a fight. Let me think about it. This is a great question. I'm fortunate. Even when I got knocked out, I just was bruised up, nothing permanent. My 2 real injuries during the sport both came in sparring. Once when I was sparring, this would have been 2012, I got a blowout fracture in my right eye. And here's the crazy thing about boxing. You just get used to pain, right? So when I initially got the fracture, I didn't think anything of it. I thought my eye was just bruised and it hurt. And I left, put some ice on it. It was cool. 2 days later, we're sparring, and we're in the clinch, and the guy nudged me with his shoulder, and it hurt so much. I was like, okay, something's wrong. And it's one of the 3 times I stopped sparring, because that's like a no-no. You never stop sparring. I said, something's wrong. We need to go to the hospital. So I was with this program out in Los Angeles that was sponsoring my career at the time as an amateur. They took me to the hospital. They showed me the surgery. I still have it saved somewhere. Not surgery, the x-ray. And they said, hey, you have a blowout fracture, and it's so bad. We normally let these things heal on their own. We need to go in there and fix that. So that took me out of boxing. I think the surgery was like the end of April, and I didn't fight again until September. So there was like the recovery and all that. So was that 4, 9? It's like 5 months, right? Almost. And then in 2018, when I was training for a comeback fight, I got the same injury, like the exact same injury, but in the left eye. The difference is this one, I knew immediately. I said, "Oh man, this sucks." Like because you're used to it from the other one, you know what it feels like. Went to the hospital. They said, "Yeah, you got this fracture." And it's funny, man. Doctors are hilarious in general, because and they should be like this. What I'm about to say. I'm telling them what it feels like, and I go, "I had this injury before. just get me. I think it was a CAT scan or maybe cat or pet. I think cat, the one where they like run your head. I said just get that and verify it. They fought me on it. I showed them my history. They said okay, we'll do it. We get the CAT scan. I'm hanging out in my room, and this doctor comes down, and then no one tells me anything, right? Doctor comes down, and he starts talking to me about plastic surgery options, and I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Who are you? He's like, didn't you have the injury at the broken face? I'm like, no one told me it was broken. They just went through, but I guess they confirmed it and they were like, okay, so here's what we got to do. But those are the two worst injuries I had, and they were both pretty bad because you have to stop fighting to let it heal, and then once it heals, you can't exert yourself because you have to, like, I couldn't blow my nose. There was a worry about blowing that out and things like that. But
Yeah, and you can't get hit there again. Like if you get that same injury again, you could go blind.
yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, that's a big problem there. So after that, I said, life is good. My coach actually said to me, he said, you really worked hard, and you have something. He didn't say it exactly like this. He just was like, what the hell are you doing? You don't need to do this anymore, right? But what he was saying is that I've done a lot of work. My career was very different than a lot of fighters, and that was by design because I knew I had a very intimate understanding that this was not going to last forever. And when I left, I didn't want to end up in the fighter's graveyard. Like I didn't want to be a guy that ends up as someone's opponent where you just show up because they're trying to move another guy around. You got a good record and you can fight. And if he beats you, he's exactly what we think he should be. But if he loses to you, we're not going to sign you or pay you any more money. We're just going to cut this guy. So a lot of guys that make a living like that, where their only goal is to not get knocked out so they don't get suspended by the athletic commission for 30 to 60 days on a medical suspension. I didn't want to end up that way. I had no desire, and I still have no desire to like coach. Pretty much, I wanted to be able to leave the sport on my own terms, and that meant, for example, doing some things that a lot of fighters don't do. I went to school during my career. I went and joined the army during my career, not prior to it. There are a few guys who start and then take up the Olympic boxing program, but that's only for amateurs. So I started as a pro and couldn't do that, and I did that so that when I was done, I could go. Okay, when it was time to leave, I wasn't going to sit there and be making a decision to stay in a physically hazardous, very mentally stressful and emotionally stressful arena just because I needed to pay the rent. Like, so.
Well, how did that feel like leaving? This is a sport that you obviously loved, that you worked hard at, that you were really good at. I mean, you had a great record. I'm sure you could have moved on to bigger and better, whether as a cruiserweight or a heavyweight. What did it feel like that first day after you decided, you know what? I am no longer currently a boxer. I'm an ex-boxer. So your label changed. The way the way you created your identity changed. Now I know there's so many other directions your identity was going, and there's so much for us to talk about. But I'm just curious about that day, that moment.
Relief. like super relief. There are a few quotes around that talk about this in different sports and different angles, right? Ray Lewis has he said this great thing. It was on TV, and I don't think anyone recorded it because I can't find the exact quote anywhere. But he goes, you get Sunday for free. I'll go out there and play Sunday, all day to my heart's content. What you're paying me for is Saturday, Monday through Saturday, the practices, the 2 days, the weightlifting sessions, the film study, all of that, and that really sums it up. There comes a point in the fighter's life where it's not really enjoyable, so to speak, because once my coach warned me about this. He goes, once you go pro, it's not going to be nearly as much fun, and for different reasons. But I didn't miss any of it because first of all, what keeps a fighter around if they don't want to be around? Attention and or money, right? Had been making great money running my website and running my website. I was private tutoring at the time, which was paying great as well. I
What kind of
was
tutoring?
private tutoring. I was tutoring high schoolers in physics and math.
Okay.
Doing that. Affiliates, I had really figured out affiliate marketing and writing. I mean, I had really found my stride and was happy financially. In terms of attention, at the height of my boxing career, when I was on TV, I had like 7,000 Twitter followers. When I stopped fighting, I think I had like 60,000, and I was getting recognized in public from my internet stuff alone. So I was like, okay, I don't really miss those two things. I could like finally relax. I could travel. When you're fighting, you can't really travel on your own. You gotta like time it and everything because you don't want to miss your gym time. And on top of that, when you're under contract, like you need to be in the gym. Otherwise, we're gonna probably cut your contract. You stop thinking about, because at this point I'm super busy. That was one extra thing that I had to worry about. And the sport is just, it's really unforgiving and brutal. I mean, you form a camaraderie with your other fighters because they know what it's like. But most people don't know it. They don't have an appreciation for how lonely and how difficult it is. Fighters always ask me, when did you know it was time to hang them up? That's what fighters ask me. You know what regular people ask me? What made you quit? Your record was so good.
That's what I just asked you.
It's a difference because they get it. It's like they get it because if you have anything else you can do, there comes a point where you're like, man, I would much rather do that. The stress is off. The burden of everyone looking to you to perform well, and then you having to deal with the ups and downs of that. It's not the physical part is easy. You just show up and train, and then you'll get it or you won't. That mental and that emotional strain, that is something that not a lot of fighters are naturally equipped for, or rather, I won't say naturally equipped. They're not taught how to deal with it because there's not a lot of people who want to even acknowledge it. It's a very, it's a masculine, macho sport. No one wants to talk about their feelings and stuff like that.
But here's where it reminds me of something very important. So I feel like there's two types of jobs or two types of lives. So there's the job where you go into work, and I'm not saying anything bad about this. This is good for many people. You go into work every 2 weeks, you get a paycheck, you like your boss, you like the people you're working with, you like the work you're doing, but you always know that paycheck's coming, you might switch jobs and so on. And then there's this other track where you literally eat what you kill. Like you do well in life and you make money as you do well, and you do worse in your career and worse in life perhaps if you do poorly. So like it reminds me, for instance, of day trading. So day trading is, you're trading every day, the stock markets, and it's so intense, and you have your own money on the line, and you're competing against the other million or so people who are day trading. And it's just psychologically brutal. No matter how much knowledge you have about, let's call it the sport of day trading. It's not a sport, but let's call it the science of day trading. It's so brutal psychologically that when I finally stopped doing it, I had that feeling of relief as well. No matter how good I was or bad I was at different points, just ending it and knowing I was never going to do it again felt really good. I'm never even tempted to do it.
And boxing is like the worst of both of those worlds. You get the worst part of the 9 to 5 world, and that you have to show up somewhere, and you have to, and it's not 9 to 5 in the sense of you punch a clock or whatever. But no, I mean you have to train every day. You can't survive if you don't. You have to be in there every day, every day. It's not passive income. It's not an investment. It's not intellectual property. You have to put your body out there every day, hone it, train, and then go fight. And then you get the worst part of the eat what you kill environment, which is there's no security. Like I had to pay my own health care, taxes. If I lost, my money was gone. In fact, when I lost my fight, I wasn't embarrassed. It was a horrible way to lose, right? But I wasn't even that embarrassed. My first thought was, man, I still got to pay my rent. Like it wasn't,
Right.
I wasn't thinking about the embarrassment, whatever, right? You lose, you win. I've lost before. No big deal about that. It just happened to be in front of a lot more people. This time though, I had like a lifestyle, not an elevated one by any means, but it depended on the money that was coming in. So that's what boxing is like. It really is the worst of both worlds. But what do you get out of it? If you let it, it'll transform you. It'll make you a better person. It has done wonders for me as a human. One of the reasons I stopped drinking was boxing, right? Maybe if I don't have that peg, if I don't have boxing in there, I still think I can carry on the rest of my life and do well. But that really helped me.
So part of you ending drinking was when you both joined the military, you started boxing. You kind of were doing both those things in parallel in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like you started your boxing career, you joined the military, and then through this, did you have this instinctive knowledge that okay, this discipline will get me over the drinking? Or like tell me about the drinking. You grew up in Pittsburgh. I lived in Pittsburgh, by the way, when you were a little kid growing up there. So you probably lived you said in your bio you grew up in the projects there, but was it in the Hill District or where'd you grow
Yeah,
up?
yeah. So yep, man. The first 9 years of my life, I lived in the Hill District. Up it was Addison Terrace, I think, or Terrace Village, one of those projects. It was on Borough Street. I don't know if you're familiar with the area, but then
Yeah.
they tore that project down because I think Pitt bought them, because if you remember,
Huh.
the University of Pittsburgh is right there, and they
Yeah.
moved us across town to another housing project called Northview Heights, where I lived until I was 18. And Northview Heights, they actually put, I kid you not, an actual gate up around. Like you had to there was two ways in and two ways out. You had to go past security guard, and then that didn't do what it was supposed to do. But yeah, man. So yeah, you know the area. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I lived in Oakland, and then I lived in Squirrel Hill, and I
Oh
lived in.
yeah, man.
So I lived there for 5 years. So, but I will be honest, we were afraid to go to the Hill District.
As you should have been.
It was dangerous.
That area is so rough. Let me tell you some stories about that area. One, you couldn't order a pizza for a while. The pizza delivery guy wouldn't come. Public transportation didn't even run to this one area called Robinson Court. The buses just stopped going up there. It's like a jungle. Trees Hall, part of Pitt, Trees Hall, where all the swimming and the athletic community was, they sat right on top of the hill at the end of Borough Street. So you could look out the window and see right into the projects. That's really close. So they had this giant fence. It's not there anymore. Gentrification came through. But that fence is not there anymore. But they used to have a giant fence that surrounded Trees Hall, because it was just a rough, crazy place to have a college campus and then this housing project. But you know what? I see that in a lot of cities I visited. I think Temple is right next to the hood up there in Philadelphia. Yeah, I wonder. I don't know what the correlation is with that, but I've seen it so much. I know that there is a relationship. Like bad neighborhoods aren't just popping up next to universities because of the caliber of the people the university's bringing or something. No. There's not something in the water either. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I've seen it in many cities. I think USC is dead smack in the middle of South. Not
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
LA.
USC's in a bad area. Yeah.
So that's crazy.
I keep saying bad area, and it's the area. It's like the area you grew up in. So
no. It is bad area. My one goal in life when I was a kid was to make sure I was never in a position when I grew up to end up back there. And now things would have to go really, really badly, and I still wouldn't end up. I just know too much now.
And Pittsburgh was oddly segregated. There was the Hill District where there was all concentrated in one place for these projects and so on. And then there was Squirrel Hill where all the Jewish people lived,
Yep.
and Oakland where all the college students lived. Shady Side was a little bit more waspy. And then there was a Greek area. There was the Polish Hill.
Yeah,
And
Little
there was
Italy over in Bloomfield and Lawrenceville. So yeah, Pittsburgh is a weird animal in this regard. People always say that Pittsburgh is segregated, and my first thought is well, there's not really that much diversity here in the first place. For example, if you go to DC, Philly, Atlanta, they're legitimate upper class black neighborhoods. Okay, there's nothing like that here, and that always, I don't think either way about it, but it's an interesting observation that the city is so homogenous that we don't even have the kind of ability. It's either a white area or everybody else, pretty much. Like that is how it goes. And then, meanwhile, you go to LA, all of East LA, hope you know Spanish. Yeah.
So then when you were growing up, when did you start kind of getting into drinking, and that became like your solution for getting through it? And like what was happening in your childhood?
You know what's interesting? I didn't drink at all as a child. When I was under 18, I was not the kid that snuck out and went to parties or anything like that. And this is largely a function of where I went to high school. I went to high school across town in a different high school from the one that my neighborhood fed into, and it's probably like one of, if not like the watershed decision in my life that made a really big difference in everything. But it wasn't until I hit young adulthood, like 19, 20, that I was like, oh, okay, people are drinking, and you're always looking for, well, a lot of people don't know the difference between being liked and respected. I am no different. I didn't, as a young person, I didn't really understand that. But I think we all have a yearning to fit in, and a yearning to kind of be desired, and if people want to be around us, whatever reason that is, we don't tend to care that much when we're younger. We just want the feeling of belonging. And certainly someone like me, I didn't have come from a strong family or anything like that. And for me, the solution was, oh, everyone's drinking. Not only am I going to drink with them, but because of how I am innately wired, and we're all wired differently, I don't like blending in the background. So I was like, I'm going to drink the hardest and the most of everyone around me, so I can be like that guy. Here's something that happens that no one warns you about. That stuff has many addictive properties. Not in the sense that like you become a crackhead fiending for the bottle, but you start to crave all of those feelings, and the only way you could get them was drinking, or is drinking. Like for example, I developed the inability to talk and have just a casual conversation. It always had to be something centered around alcohol. Bonding with people had to be around alcohol. Oh, let's meet up for drinks, and then it turns into more than just drinks. You end up like not remembering the night. That was me on a regular basis, and I didn't realize how bad it was. I had a few, I think every person that stops drinking has a few moments along the way where they're like, okay, maybe we got some issues. Okay, yeah, it's really bad. I remember when I went to LA. The story behind me getting to LA, I'll shorten it to stay on point. But I won the Pennsylvania Golden Gloves, went to the National Golden Gloves as a boxer, amateur. Won, beat a pretty high profile guy, and then his sponsors brought me out to LA. That's how I ended up out to LA. It was like an overnight thing, no plan. And I got there, and Los Angeles is a place where you need a car. Otherwise, you're probably not going to have much of a social life if you live in most places. I didn't have a car and couldn't get anywhere. So I was really down. And the way I handled being down, I hesitate to call it depressed, but it was close enough. The way I handled that, I was like, okay, I miss being around my friends. What do me and my friends do all the time to feel good? Well, we drank, and I didn't make the connection. I was just trying to drink to feel good, and it wasn't working. And I was going through probably, a bottle a day or a box of wine a day. And the cool thing about being young and athletic, is you can do that and still go perform and be good. And it was just like lather, rinse, repeat. And you find drinking buddies like that. And if you don't have a drinking buddy, just drink alone, and you just keep that up. And then I moved back, and now I was around my friends, but now I'm doing stuff like drinking on my own, drinking a beer to go to sleep at night, stuff like that. And then I'm like, okay, this is not gonna cut it. And it wasn't until I enlisted, where I was away from drinking for like, because you can't drink in basic training, and then you go through TRADOC, which is basically it's still basic training, but now you have a little more freedoms, but you're not a full-fledged soldier yet, as they say.
But describe why you enlisted.
I enlisted to get some money for school. Pretty much. And because, but that was the main reason. I enlisted to get money for school, but I also like made the decision to go to that I needed a better resume. I was like stuck selling phones, and I couldn't do any better. I didn't think I could. I thought I needed a stronger resume. Everything was about, in my mind, let's get a job. But I stepped away from all this for a while, and I'm like, wow, I really have an issue because I can't stop thinking about this. I can't stop dealing with it. I got out. I came back from a training, went out one night, partied, made a fool of myself, woke up, and I said, okay, we
How'd you make
got.
a fool of yourself? How'd you make a
Oh
fool of
man,
yourself?
I
What
got.
happened?
What
Tell us
happened?
details.
Oh man, details. I got one drunk to where I can't really remember what's going on. Last thing I remember, man, I was hitting on a buddy's ex, and she was just a bad news person in general. Never mind the fact that she was a friend's ex. Then on top of that, I don't remember how I got to my boy's house where I woke up the next morning, and I said, okay, dude. You got a lot riding now, because now I got something to lose. I felt like I was like, okay, my career's just starting. I'm in the military. I'm in school. I had just met the girl I'm still with now, and I thought she had great potential. And I said, if I mess any of this up in my life, the trajectory of my life is going. If I mess this up, I want to be responsible for messing it up. I don't want to like go, oh man, if only I could control my drinking. And I had another buddy who had got sober that I met in the fight community. I had met him. He had just got sober like 2 years ago, and he said he's like, you should probably just put this stuff on hold and see how far you can go. And it just rung out to me, man. And I said, you know what? Let's give it a break. Let's see where it can go.
But that's a very mature way to think, though, that hey, I'm doing this one bad behavior that I can't control, and I have all these other good things going on that I'm putting in jeopardy. So I better make some both small and big decisions in my life to get things back on track. I don't think I was capable of making that kind of decision until I was 50 years old. So
It's a what really got me. I'm really sensitive, not sensitive, aware. I'm very aware of the power of your reputation and how people perceive you. And I really didn't like how I was starting to be viewed and perceived. And I didn't like the guy. When I tell people this story, I say, I had this. I looked to the future and I said, okay, I'm gonna be 33 one day, God willing. Or will I have more options or fewer options than I have now at 28? And I could not. I didn't want to be a loser. Like I hate feeling that way. And I said, okay, this is the path to losing them. Let me step off of it. I wish I was the guy that could crush life and drink. I know a lot of guys like that, but I accepted my limitation. I said, okay, I can't do it that way. It ain't gonna get done that way. And what we won't be, we're not gonna end up like so many other people in my family or that I had grew up around. That's not gonna happen. Let me get this under control before I end up in prison. That's was a big deal. Before I end up ruining another good relationship. Let's not have that be a problem. I was terrified of not being able to finish good because at that point, I mean, now I still think college is a scam, and I thought college was a scam then. The difference is now I have a degree, so my opinion carries a lot more weight than just the guy who's mouthing off about it. And people can go, "Oh, you just can't do it." Like, no, I did it and did it at a hard level. But at that point in my life, I thought that was my only option for having more options. So I didn't want to
right.
ruin that either. So it just made sense to just put it all aside. And I told myself, this is some true addict behavior right here. I said, dude, all you gotta do is like graduate or like win like 10 fights or self-publish a book, and then you can reward yourself with some wine. Well, all that stuff took about I didn't self-publish till 4 years after I was drinking. And by that point I was like, man, everybody's like looking to me as this guy who made these changes. And on top of that, I don't have a compulsion to drink anymore. Like I feel good. Like I like talking. I like being in control. I like knowing that if I piss somebody off, it's because it was me. And like they're gonna call me an asshole and they're not gonna say I'm a drunk. Like one of those, I think some people would be more comfortable with being called a drunk than an a-hole. But I'm like, dude, if you don't, I would much rather have the onus of offense on my personality than because of how I behaved under the influence.
Right, because I guess that's another way of saying you want to be in control of who you are as opposed to some external factor. And I'll say addiction is like an external factor. It's an illness that hits you, and you wanted to make the mistakes rather than this addiction to alcohol making the
Absolutely.
mistakes for you.
Absolutely. And you know what? I've gone back and like talked to some people who are going through like AA and stuff like that. And whenever you share, you talk about your path and your struggles and all that. But a common theme I hear whenever I decide to stop into a meeting and say hello is a lot of people, um, they don't know themselves. All they know is a person who's who's built a they because all their friends they hang out with are indulging in the substance, whatever that substance is. Their life revolves around it. They make decisions based on it, and I know that I've been there. I mean, there was a heavy time where I was modifying my practice schedule so I could get to the bar, and then showing up hungover or even a little drunk, and that was when that was that important because I didn't have an identity outside of that. And so when I hear people say that, the hardest thing to do for many people who decide to get clean, get sober, is building a new identity, becoming comfortable with somebody who does not do that stuff.
And then it seems like what you did, which also is a very much what I'll call an eat what you kill thing to do, is you diversified that identity. So you weren't, Ed the boxer or Ed the drinker. You studied and got a degree in physics. You became this internet uh, you know, expert. You've written books, and we'll talk about those in a second. You went on to be a successful boxer, and then quit at the right time. You've created all these things that you do, and I think that's the right. My personal opinion. Not everyone has to agree, but is living the life of the hyphenate, like no one could pin you down to one identity,
Yep.
is really the right way to go because then you're not limited to an identity. You're just yourself.
Yeah, and on top of that, it gives you purpose. So many people don't have purpose, so it makes it easy. Well, what's that old cliche, right? If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. There's a lot of truth in that idea, because now I am XYZ person, okay, whatever that person is. All of those identities, none of them have alcohol use in them. Okay, so I'm protected not just once, not just twice, but like by four identities from ever relapsing. Okay, because they all have a purpose. And when you have a purpose,
Yeah.
it's like everything else kind of falls into the background. You're not really interested. I'm really happy to, and I think a lot of guys struggle with this too and thinking about quitting boxing. It was easy for me to make the decision because, like you said, I had the hyphen life. I wasn't just Ed the boxer. And if boxing left, that was it. No, there were so many other things to the point where like boxing was kind of this muted personality in the background that I had access to, but we weren't really doing anything. So I'm like, hey man, you gotta go. We're gonna make some room for some other ones. Add the writer, add the speaker, add the personality, add the social media influencer, those things. So it really helps. I mean, not just in terms of quitting boxing, not just in terms of quitting alcohol, but any change you want to make. I think having a purposeful reason behind it.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team or I can pick my favorite players and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include two or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game-like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy. The future of learning is definitely online. Like, it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when it's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like, the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list, because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast, on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these Masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin or on chess from Gary Kasparov? You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a Masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get two memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply. It's almost like having a purposeful reason behind something external, which you're going to attempt to get better at. So whatever topic it is, whether it's boxing, chess, social media, business, physics, whatever. So having a purpose there, which drives you forward towards getting better. But then also you've referred to this in your book about I always forget titles, but not caring what other people think is a superpower. Insights from a heavyweight boxer. Great book by Ed Latimore. I'm pumping up your book there a little.
Oh, thanks.
In that you kind of refer to how having your own. I forget how you put it, but essentially your own principles and values, so that you can't be moved off that. It's almost like a tree with roots.
Yeah.
So you can't be punched off that by someone who doesn't like you, for instance, and you're trying to please. And I think I tend to get swayed a little. Like if I'm in a new environment and I want someone to like me, I might, not that I'll compromise my values, but I won't necessarily think of them. I'll think more about what people are thinking of me than thinking of my values.
Right. It's when you're not on center. Yeah, I see what you're saying, because I think a lot of us have experienced that. It's like, oh, why did I say that? Why did I do that? That's not me.
Yeah,
But
I'll even like wake up in the middle of the night, like, and I'll literally say out loud, no. I'll remember like something I said like earlier that day to somebody. Or whatever.
yeah,
And
that
my wife will say to me, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Nothing. Don't worry about it." And she's like, "No, no, tell me what you're talking about." I'm like, "Really, it's nothing." And it really is nothing, but I can't help but say it's like a Tourette's thing. I say like no out loud when I think of something embarrassing that I said.
because I think we have an innate fear of rejection, and I think that is never going to go away. I have the fear too, right? The difference is that I try to put in enough prophylactic devices or personality traits against that, to manage and mitigate that fear. Part of that is really liking who I am. Like I've done a lot of work over the past 7 or 8 years to really like me. Like, to where I genuinely feel if you don't like me, you probably have a problem. And maybe that's a little arrogant, right? But it's self-serving for my psychological health, because I cannot let myself be deterred or take actions based on the approval of another person. Because if I do that, then I run the risk of not doing something that would help me get closer to my cause, my purpose, and lead me along the way. All for what? For some temporary gratification or approval, from a person who is likely not even going to remember meeting me, or I'm not going to be a significant speck in their day-to-day activities or in their goals. So got to stay on point. You get, and it also helps. You got to be comfortable being a bad guy. A lot of people don't like being
Mm.
viewed as the bad guy. And what I find is that as long as you have some people on your team, you don't need everyone,
That's such a
right?
great point. And also not being afraid of being the bad guy. Not in the sense that you're going to like rob a bank and not care what people think of you, but just no matter what opinion or stance you have, or no matter what you do, there's going to be people who are either jealous or upset or whatever, and you're going to have to be their bad guy. It's
Right.
not like you're a bad guy, you're going to be their bad guy.
And
And you can't convince everybody.
and you shouldn't try. We waste a lot of energy uh, doing that, and we could be. I think every person. I said this on Twitter once, and it was something I just say, and it stuck with me.
Well,
But
then it's law. If you said it on Twitter
then it's
once.
law. Uh, but I said, we lose a lot of potential trying to fit in. I mean, think about how many kids would have stood out and did something great or unique for themselves or their lives if they were not trying to dumb themselves down or behave in a way that makes them fit in and gain social approval. It's a powerful force. I'm not denying that is like an innate human thing, but I think part of what makes us human in general is that we can go, okay, I want to do that, but I won't do that because I'm trying to achieve or gain this. And the older you get,
Mm.
the more adept you get at making that decision. You get at weighing out the factors and going, okay, this is much more important than the approval of a few people who, in a few years, I may not even be friends with or cool with. Plus, we don't really have the same goals anyway. Why do I want to link up with them? That was a hard. I think that's a hard thing for everyone. The internet makes it a lot easier today, which is finding people with similar goals, similar perspectives, similar values, so you don't have to compromise on who you are and what you want to do just so you can have some companionship. Because that urge is not going away. We're not going to get rid of the desire to be around other people. I think you should just put a lot of energy into finding people that let you be yourself, you know?
Yeah, I think that's key. And again, I feel like that's another lesson I didn't quite learn until I was 50 years old, which is, I guess I was a spectrum. Like I was learning it all along, but I feel like I really turned a corner literally just 2 years ago. And even though I had career, everything was going well, it's just every now and then I would be insecure enough in relationships that I would just my gravitational pull would be off center. Like I'd be too much in someone else's gravitational pull. And that's always a painful place to be.
Yeah, you know what? What I think of immediately. It's like it's unstable equilibrium, right? If you'll be there and you'll have a nice balance and you'll have a strong foundation, but it's not a permanent one. Anything can topple it. There are variables. And as you get more secure and more comfortable, the harder it is to topple it. But it's never infallible. It's never invincible. So what you have to do when something shakes you on your core, makes you want to behave a different way, it really pays to have kind of to think your way through these things, to go, okay, why do I feel this way? Why do I want to do this? And it ain't got to be like a long drawn out thought, but just a kind of a twinge of awareness, like what is going on here? This is foolish, or wow, why do I feel this way? Why am I worried about this? And either you'll realize it is silly and pointless, or you'll dive deeper and give yourself an answer so your behavior does not seem so out of character.
But that's really the key, is having that awareness to say, oh, I'm not really feeling well about this situation. I think most people just say, I'm not feeling well because I don't know, I need to try harder to get these people to like me, or I need to make some more money. Like you say, that's the mind of an addict. And in
Right.
this case, being addicted to, that same feeling of unworthiness that's inside every addict. That's what leads to the I can't do X until Y, until something fills that hole in some way. And we make up all these different, variables to put in to fill that hole.
Right. And we're also looking for excuses too. And I don't mean like that in I guess it is negative, right? So we're always looking for excuses. So but what we're trying to do is we're trying to find a reason to not act. We're not trying. There we go. We're not trying to find a reason. We're not trying to explain away why something did or didn't happen. Right? An excuse in that sense. We're looking for a reason to not act because we're really afraid of the action. I mean, think about this. If you spent your whole life trying to please people, then you know two outcomes: they either accept you or they don't, and you're always trying to avoid that don't, because that's what you do when you try and please people. But imagine if you woke up one day, how much of a shift it would be. Like, you know what? I don't give a damn, right? And now you've got to do something you've never done before, which is not care. Okay, and that is hard for people because
It's hard. That's doing 1,000 push-ups a day for 1,000 days.
yeah, that's being able to look at that rejection in the face and go, I don't care. In fact, give me more of it. I'm hungry. I always say, when you live true to yourself, you welcome rejection. And that is not just something that sounds tight to say. That's the truth. When you are happy with yourself, you want to get rid of people who are not going to be on your page as quickly as possible, because it's a waste of time.
That is so important. Like I realized for me, I essentially stopped. I used to make money, go broke, make money, go broke. I basically stopped going permanent. You always have ups and downs, but I basically stopped going dead broke when I finally made it a real conscious effort to get rid of toxic people in my life. The slightest toxicity, I had a one strike and you're out policy, not even like a 3 strikes and you're out, like 1 strike and you're out policy. And that worked really well. I mean, I think sometimes it unnerved people, but for me, it worked really well.
And you know what that reminds me of? See, for you, let me preface this. you're only going to go as far as your worst habit. I really believe that.
Mm, mm.
For you, it was hanging out with the toxic people. For me, it was drinking. And once you get rid of that one thing, your worst habit, your keystone anti-habit, as I call it, right? Then everything else falls into place. All of a sudden, all of these other improvements that seem unrelated start to occur. And it's just because you got rid of that one thing that was holding you back and pulling you down in everything you tried to do.
Yeah, it's really true. It's like if you don't do something like that, if you're obsessed with when am I going to get that next drink, or if you spend 8 hours a night in a bar with friends drinking, or for me, if I was just having relationships with people who are simply not good for me, that's an enormous amount of time that you could. I mean, that could, like, there's only 2,000 working hours in a year. That could take up 1,500 hours of your time that you could have spent getting better at so many different things, which you look at it for you, once you unleashed yourself after the alcohol, you were a boxer, physics, Twitter, social media, speaker, writer. Like, people don't realize the box of gifts that just opens up and spills everywhere once you get rid of that least powerful habit.
The opportunity cost of having a kind of good enough existence is huge, because you're just moving along, going through the motions, doing acting on autopilot a lot of times. So you may be aware that these things are causing you a problem, but you haven't really did the work and dug into them. And every time you feed into this autopilot, every time you do the bad thing that or the unconstructive thing that you've been doing, you lose time that could have been used elsewhere to make yourself more fulfilled. I reflect on the time of my life from, we'll say, 2015 to 2017, so almost 3 years. And during that time, I was simultaneously, this is all at once, I was simultaneously fighting professional, uh, in school, doing like 18 credits of like hard work, not slouch work for college, but like hard stuff that I had to learn. I was serving in the National Guard, so going to my drills, and sometimes 4 days or 5 days, trying to run and grow my blog, my social media, and still be a good boyfriend, right? A good person in my relationship. And I look back still, and I'm like, how did I do all that? Because it seems exhausting, but it's because I freed up so much time, because
Yeah.
I wasn't wasting it on anything. It wasn't even on my mind to figure out how to go socialize and drink at the bar.
That's just it. There is a lot of time out there. And I always am fascinated by, I'll go out to dinner with people and they'll say, "Oh, I can't wait to work on my book finally." And then we'll just keep I'll be like, or okay, I'm done with eating now. I'm ready to go home. And they'll just keep going like 1, 2 in the morning. Like, when are you going to write your book? You're going to wake up at 11. It's going to be too late to write in the morning. And then your day's going to happen. And then you're going to be out at night again. It really, on the one hand, it takes a lot of time to succeed at something. On the other hand, the time is there. But like you say, you got to get rid of the negatives. Sometimes people think, oh, I've got to add positives, but it's just like if you don't want to die, for instance, the number one way to die is through heart attack. So if you just start eliminating all the things that cause a heart attack, you'll live longer.
Right.
If you eliminate all the things that cause strokes or whatever, you'll live longer. And it's the same thing with creativity and all these different areas. Like, you've been involved in you studied physics, you were fascinated by physics, boxing, social media, writing. Probably a lot of people along the way told you, Ed, you can't do that. What do you think you're doing studying physics? What are you going to be, a rocket scientist or whatever? or you don't go to box unless you think you could beat Mike Tyson, or don't do social media and public speaking. There's all these like eggheads in Silicon Valley that are doing that. Like, did a lot of people tell you can't during all these different things?
Not a lot of people, but there was always one or two people who would say something, and you never forget them. I actually thought I would, but it always fueled me. Like, I'll never forget, after my first amateur fight, and I won by knockout. My friend said, and he means well. It wasn't like being a hater. He's just one of my great friends today. But he said, So what are you going to do when you fight people that don't just get knocked out? And I was like, keep fighting them. Like, it was a weird question, but it was only till later that I understood where he was coming from. And then when I joined the military to better and further my life, I had a friend say, well, aren't you worried about dying? Don't go away and do that. Like, it doesn't matter how much you can get from it. What if you die? And I didn't hear a concern for my life, because it's like, I'm an adult. Of course, I thought that could happen. What I heard was, because now this is a few years later, and I'm a little more hip to the game of human nature. What I heard was, you can't do this. We are used to this order of things. We don't want this order of things to be disrupted. I used to get, friends would poke fun of like, just how often I was on social media, and I was like, you don't understand what I'm doing, though. You'll see. You'll see. And a few, now they ask for advice on doing certain things with their own businesses and marketing. It's not. I don't. I never consider that behavior malicious. What I consider that behavior is the way people deal with anything they don't understand, and they do it through the lens of knowing me and caring about me, so they're not gonna like attack it, but they're still like, that doesn't fit my paradigm, that doesn't fit what I know about how things are gonna work. How does this make any sense to me? You ever, like, it's like a discussion, you ever have a discussion with somebody about homeschoolers, and they always go, well, what about the social interaction? And all it takes is like, well, look at all the people who do crazy stuff. They are clearly not, and most of them, if not all of them, went to public school. They're not. It's not like all the people in history who did crazy things were homeschooled, and other ones
Right.
who didn't were schooled in the system. If anything, it's probably close to the inverse. But it's just, we have a knee-jerk reaction to something that's different.
Right. And we don't want people to do things outside of, it's not just, our paradigm for doing things, it's our paradigm for you. So like your friends
Oh.
liked you as you were, not they liked Ed the drinker, whatever. They didn't necessarily like Ed the physicist or Ed the guy who people were calling for advice about social media.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
have
not that's not a bad thing. It's their insecurity too.
not a bad thing at all. I have a section in the book about sober letters to my drunken self. The other book, I have a section where I talk about this, where I think about how obvious it was that I was out of control with my drinking. But not one person, none of my friends, no one pulled me aside and was like, "Hey, man, we care about you, X, Y, Z, right? We think you need to, do something, anything." And I thought about that, and I think a lot of it boils down to, well, they'd have to turn the mirror also and be like, okay, well, if he's got this thing, then maybe we have this thing too, or maybe we've enabled it. It's let's let that be. Let him figure it out, and hopefully he doesn't kill himself while he's figuring it out. Maybe. Uh, so I think your friends mean well. The point of me bringing that up, I think your friends always mean well for you. It's just that when a change happens that changes you almost at a fundamental level, they have to figure out how to relate to you, and it's hard and it's new, and some of them don't always succeed. Those are the ones you have to cut off. But I think, generally speaking, I'm not a big believer that you got to get rid of old friends when you make changes or upgrade. I mean, if you got to get rid of somebody because, like, they break the law or do bad stuff around you, that's another thing. But when you upgrade, a lot of times, there's the initial imbalance, but then they figure it out, and they see the new you, and they relate to you, and that changes. But yes, that change is a turbulent period that I think some friendships don't survive, maybe because the attack is a bit too aggressive, or the person's not understanding enough of what's going on in the process, and then they fall out when they would have, like, done well later.
Well, I guess there's two types of people who are going to tell you you can't, or are going to feel somewhat threatened by what's happening. One is there's the type that values their friendship with you, and they're afraid you're going to change too much, or they don't understand what you're doing, so they think it's going to be a mistake just simply because they don't understand it. And like you said, maybe they get through that, and your key is to not care as much about, not in a bad way, but not care as much what they think, so you can pursue your interests and your passions and so on, and then hopefully it all comes together. Then there's the other type where they really are threatened by what you're doing in a negative way, like they're jealous, like, oh wait, he's going to get a degree, but I'm still not going to have a degree. He's going to think he's all better than me, and or he's going to be doing this and in social media and making money, but I'm still here. And that's a different kind of, they're more afraid in some sense of what's happening to them vis-a-vis you.
Absolutely. There are some people, and I'm sure you've had this experience in one way or the other. There are some people who define themselves by their superior position to you, whether that be financially, health-wise, relationship, whatever. And then when you go and shore up that problem, instead of being happy for you the way a normal person should be, it really bugs them, because it's like, okay, I try to keep people around because they've got their own demons they're dealing with, right? Where they're not secure or comfortable in their own skin, or they've got imposter syndrome, whatever, right? Who knows what the issue is? But what happens is when you start shoring up weaknesses in your life, that threatens them. There are people who become friends with you when you're at your worst point, because it's like a rescue savior complex. It's like they gotta have superiority, and then when you get it together, they're not happy for you. They're not supportive the way they should be. And instead, you're sitting here all confused, like, man, is it me? Did I do something wrong? And then, because we don't have a lot, because no one teaches this, right? No one goes, okay, when you improve, sometimes there's going to be these vampires that latched on when you were nothing, and now that you're something, it's going to bug them. No one teaches that, so you get all confused, like, man, is it me? Am I really acting like it ain't whole now that I've got a little bit of things going on? And the reality is, a lot of times, it's not. It is a disruption of the status quo. Some people really don't. I always say, you want to see who's really your friend, improve your status relative to theirs very quickly and see how they respond to you.
Yeah, I think, people often ask, like, hey, what's the best thing I can do right now to make some money? And they think this is going to be the cure for them. But really, the thing to know is exactly what you just said. Like, navigating these different changes in status, these different changes in skills, these different changes in interests, people are the ones who are going to be pulling you up or dragging you down. Like, that's such a strong, powerful force in the universe, really. And like, you're a physics guy. I've been getting into physics myself a little bit lately when everyone tells me I can't do it. But I compare that to, like, let's say, gravitation's a little bit weaker, so but your friends are going to be this strong nuclear force that's going to bind you to their opinions, and you have to really work hard to pull yourself away from them. That's an explosion.
Oh man, dude, I absolutely love physics and math analogies to real life. It's just a great way to go, and I never made that one, but that's awesome. And that's exactly what happens, is that your friends grow with you and support you to a point, but there will come a point, if you're in any friendship, where one of two things is going to happen. Everyone kind of goes their own way, and then they meet up after a few years, or keep touching social media, and that's really easy to deal with, because no one is trying to. There's no mass. There's no center bonding everyone together. There's nothing for them to congregate around. That's easy. Everyone goes their own way, and they say hello from the electron cloud, and they say, hey man, how you doing? And meet up, and it's all good. Or everyone wants to stay bound and together, and you're trying to get free, and that is going to encounter resistance in every way, shape, or form. It's like
and it never stops, by the way.
It never stops.
because right now you've developed a methodology, like many do, to be on a constant path of improvement, small incremental changes, get out of your comfort zone every day, experiment with new ideas and new things. That's going to put you constantly changing. Every year, you're going to be very different from the year before. Same with me. And ever since I've been on that path, every year you find out, like you said, you find out who your real friends are because your status starts to change again. And or not necessarily up or down or sideways, but it's just changing.
You're just not the same person. And what I've found, because this annoys me, and now we're talking about things that actually annoy me. I'll be like, I am this person, and they continue to reference you in the way that you were, the younger you, to kind of remind you. That's what it feels like a
Yeah.
lot of times. Kind of remind you, you used to be this way, and how dare you be this way now? And I'm gonna continue to reference you by the names we used in high school or something like that to the extreme. And it's like, nah, man, don't really rock that way anymore. And it's awkward because it's a very passive type of thing, and so you can't really attack it without looking like a fool. But at some point, you kind of got to go, okay, dude, this is out of hand. Cut it. And how they deal with it after that, determines the course of the friendship or relationship, whatever, however close you are. But I just think about it because I think about it a lot because I think at the end of the day, right? You said people are the most important thing, and we have to find the best way we can to relate to them. And I think we all have our issues when there's a big change in someone we've known for a long time, whether it's positive or negative. It's just that a lot of times we aren't equipped with the emotional faculties to recognize that this positive change has nothing to do uh, negatively with us. Like, it's just this person going through their own metamorphosis, and we can still relate to them. We still have the time built in our relationship. It doesn't change things. People are jealous. You have a new friend group maybe that you spend a little more time with by nature of what you're doing or what you're trying to accomplish, and they're like, oh man, go hang out with your new friends, right? But which is like a horrible way to respond. But it's kind of natural. Is as weird as that
Yeah.
sounds, I always try to understand why people behave a certain way, and then from there I can figure out, the best way to kind of meet it and decide if I need to eliminate, mitigate, or we just had a misunderstanding. We can chat. There are a lot of solutions to this problem, and it's always going to be a problem as long as people, especially now, but you can meet so many people than who you grew up around.
Yeah, and I think it was in your book on the not caring what people think, and also you've alluded to a little here, where one solution. I think this is what I wish someone had told me like 20 years ago or more, which is that if you are acting out of this core set of values and principles, and those are good principles, then you'll have confidence. You won't, if just because a bunch of people say, hey, Ed, you're really bad now that you're hanging out with those other friends. If you're coming at it from a point of good principles and good for, good movement in the right direction for yourself, then that's that confidence that, keeps you on the right track instead of being, gravitationally pulled to, these bad
Yeah.
influences.
A lot, a lot can be said for having a set of principles and values that you base all of your actions on.
So how do you come up with those? Like someone listening to this who's like 20, who's like, I don't need to worry about that. I'm going to just make a lot of money first, or I'm a good guy, but I'm going to school now. I'm not focused on all this philosophical stuff. How does someone build their like personal manifesto in some sense?
You have to figure out how you want people to feel around you. And once you figure that out, then you want to figure out the best way to kind of make that happen. Now, this is a very basic part of it because there's so much I think that goes into building a set of values. But if I was giving somebody who's young a scratch point, I'd say treat people in a way that makes them want to treat you well. And when you do that while simultaneously not hurting yourself or hurting other people, I think do no harm is like a first principle kind of deal where like there's nothing really before it. You just kind of start there with people. If you start out with, don't harm people, and that's with not just physically, but with your words or your mannerisms or the things you promote or whatever. If you try not to hurt a person, and you also try to set people up to where their interaction with you makes them better, even if by only an infinitesimally small amount. In other words, you're not trying to pull anyone back, hold anyone back, detract, negate anything of that. People either, at worst case scenario, someone leaves from interacting with you the same as they were when they started. If you live that way, I think you figure out a lot of other things along the way. You start to build a more nuanced sense of morality. You start to build a more nuanced sense of your values. But if you start with the heavy-handed idea, the overarching idea that everyone that you encounter is going to leave, worst case scenario, the same as they were when they interact with me, you start thinking about how you talk to them. You start thinking about how you encourage them. You start thinking about even how you deliver criticism. A lot of your criticism will be purely constructive. In fact, that's the idea, to shift to pure constructive criticism, especially when it comes to dealing with people directly, because there's almost no gain in just criticizing. In fact, that's usually an act of like, okay, time to throw down the gauntlet. You have this problem, and here's what we're gonna do about it. It's like, nah, man, let's figure out how to solve this problem, right? Then, that's how I think whenever I even have a conflict with people. It's like, okay, there's probably been a misunderstanding, and if there wasn't, like, we were crystal clear and we still don't like one another, that's cool. But we don't have to let that dominate our thought process, like how are we going to attack this person, how to bring them down. So to just summarize, reiterate, try to make everyone and everything around you better. Make your surroundings better than you found them. Make people better than you found them.
And this is related to the not caring what people think about you, because let's say it's the typical cliche thing. Everybody doesn't want to go on the dance floor at a party because they think everyone's looking at them. When the reality is no one's looking at them. Everyone's
Right.
just cared about, everyone's thinking everyone else is looking at them. So if you kind of, this is almost looking at it almost too game like, but if you kind of know that everyone's really more, no matter how much you think people are looking at you, they're looking at themselves 1,000 times more. And if you
Oh,
kind
for
of
sure.
cater to that power, then that's a good way to help you also deal with, I don't care what people think about me. You always just put themselves, you always kind of put yourself in their shoes a little bit. They're worried about themselves
Right. It
ultimately.
really, and it makes you, oh man, empathy is huge, because if you know how a person, man, it's funny. I started a YouTube channel, right? Not plugging in here. I just decided to get out and make some videos because I write a lot and I was speak. But I just talked about one of the big problems with digital communication is that it has divorced people from the cause and effect relationship. They don't see
Yeah.
how what they say influences how a person feels, and they don't see that because they're not there, right? There's a whole set of reactions that's going on with your body, your tone of voice, even your eye movement. That even if you're not aware of it, you're calibrating what you say to that when you have a face-to-face conversation for you to achieve your desired effect. Okay, and if you develop that ability in person, then you're going to be a better communicator, and you're going to be able to get more done, and just be more constructive in general with everything that you try to do with every person you interact with. And a big part of that is that you're not trying to hurt them. You're trying to get through to them. You're not trying to smash the point through their skull. You're trying to make sure they understand it. You can yell at a person all you want. It's like they teach us in boxing, or my coach always says in boxing, telling ain't teaching. Telling, telling, that is someone who has zero empathy and zero ability to look at a person and go, are you getting it? Are you understanding it? I can see your eyes are kind of glossed over, right? They can't figure that out. But when you become more of a teacher, when you are trying to make sure a person understands you, you're going to pay attention to these little cues. Change your delivery. Slow up, speed down, pace through, maybe crack a joke or two in to get your communication through better. All of this comes from being able to look at a person and go, okay, I see how you're feeling. When you understand how a person's feeling, or at least try to, not saying you get it perfect, but you try to, you tend to do a little more good than bad in that way.
Yeah, and so how did this all now lead into being like a, you're in the social media business now. You've written books. And by the way, the books are very valuable. One's or you've written several. The two I'll focus on most is the one where you go from drinking to sober. I'm sorry, I'm always bad with titles, but I'll say the title: Sober Letters to My Drunken Self. And then the other one that I read was Not Caring What Other People Think is a Superpower: Insights from a Heavyweight Boxer. You've also wrote Twitter Poems and Insights, and
Oh yeah, that one that one's terrible. But that was but
we've
it's
all got
okay.
our terrible. We've
Yeah.
all got our terrible, and you also have the four confidences.
Yeah, which is
Um,
free now. You can just sign up to my email list and you get it for free. Really, I'm really proud of that one too. I'm proud of like everything I do, but some things like really stick, and I think it's because of the maybe the impact. And the two I'm really most proud of is the free book, the free confidences, and sober letters to my drunken self. Because I continually get messages, man, this book helped me dealing with trying to stop drinking here, or I got this book from my dad and he made serious changes. I'm like, wow, all I'm
that's
doing was
cool.
talking about my experience, and I get to help people with that.
And yeah, so how did you get into being kind of not quite self-help, not quite social media guru, but somewhere in between there?
Uh, you know, I think I think we're all wired a certain way, right? We all have our certain strengths and weaknesses. And I'm really fortunate that my strength, I am an excellent teacher. And I don't think I'm excellent at many things, but I think I excel at teaching. And not just, some, soft skills over the internet. All of my students, whether they were getting ready for basic biology or the AP exam in calculus, I mean, they did a great job. And I actually had more work than I could do. I had to raise my prices, and then when that didn't work, I had to just tell people I don't have the time. Okay, and that's because I really try to understand. I try to keep myself free to curse and knowledge. Okay, I try to make sure I never forget what it's like to not know, and then work through the level where you do know, I kind of know all the mistakes. I told my one student, I said, hey, don't worry. I already know where you're going to mess up in calculus. Like we already know that. So all you got to do is just follow my lead and you're going to be okay. We're going to figure this out. That same ability is manifested, I think, in my writing and what I try to do. Because my motto, my unofficial motto for my videos and my site is I take what I learned the hard way and I break it down so you can learn it the easy way. And I have that because that's what I did. I mean, I think I had a relatively hard life, some of it optional, some of it by virtue of, where I was born and how I was born. But from that, I'm here, no prison record, no illegitimate children, nothing like that, right? Uh, and so I've figured out a lot of things along the way, the hard way. And now I'm like, okay, let me teach these to you. And that's what I use the internet for. I think, some people build their following based on, their jokes, some people on their hot takes about politics. For me, it is about trying to give people some stuff that they can use, Now I'm no fool, I know the principles of business well enough so that they don't work against me. I know the principles of SEO and title selection and keywords and all that, so they don't work against me. But my first principle, my first point, the main thing I try to accomplish with everything I create is to help people. And more importantly, or more specifically, help them in a way that I can help them. I could just put out generic how-tos about everything, right? And generic helps. But I won't have pictures, I won't have personal anecdotes, I won't have stories. I try to design my blog to where like if you went and read an article, you couldn't just copy it. You'd have to alter quite a bit in terms of like the pictures there and the details because it's all from my life and all what I've experienced. So that's how it started.
Yeah, and a lot of your message I really agree with, because and it comes from a place where it's clear to see you're always in learning mode. But you mentioned the importance of not just struggle, but getting out of your comfort zone, experimenting and trying different things. And I think this is a really important concept. I think on the one hand, repetition is good for teaching, but on the other hand, I think much faster is putting yourself in
Yeah.
slightly difficult situations. Like if you were boxing, it's one thing if you box someone exactly your height and reach and weight and so on, and you just fought each other every day. That will get you good at the repetition of all the moves you need. But let's say every day the person you were fighting was a millimeter taller than the day before. It was slightly out of your comfort zone. You'd have to really build up to, as they start getting larger.
Yeah, each struggle, right? You kind of learn. I think you have to learn to become uncomfortable or become comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
As weird as that sounds, and you still don't really become comfortable with it. But what happens is that you stop looking forward to any reprieve and you just go into pure adaptation mode. I think a lot of people they can't stick with something for a long time, for example, because they're like, okay, I've been doing this, when am I going to get something out of it? When am I going to get the payoff? And when they don't get it, they feel cheated. They feel like they wasted their time. They leave early. When I think the best way to go into things is just kind of assume you're not going to get anything from it, other than the satisfaction of doing it. And if you go into it like that, you'll survive the long haul. Like I think about how long it took me to become even remotely proficient at like throwing the jab in boxing. We're talking like 7 years into my career. And
7 years to learn how to throw a jab.
not how to throw it, in general, but to throw it well enough to where like I was perfectly defended. The timing was off. I could throw it from any angle whenever I was ready to drop it. Yeah, that took a long time because all this stuff has to come together. Now imagine if I came into the sport thinking, okay, in 3 years I'm gonna be making like $100,000 a fight and be on and popping. Not only is that not realistic, I'm gonna be very disappointed when it's the fourth year and nothing has happened, or it's like the third year in like 3 days, because I'm chasing some kind of gratification, some reward. I think this is what they mean when they talk about delayed gratification. I think this is another way to look at it, which is you don't go into it looking for it at all. When it shows up, it's going to show up and you'll know it. It's like writing a blog. You know how many people come on and try to write a blog and grow it, and all of a sudden they're like, man, I still only have 1,000 readers, and they're all like, 100 readers, and they're all people I know I send it to, and why am I doing this? Well, that's because you didn't get into it for the right reason. You didn't have a process oriented mindset. You were like, all right, I'm looking for this, and I don't have that. It's time to leave. One of the things I say, I always tell guys in boxing, I'm like, look, if you decide to do this, do it for reasons that can't be taken away from you. You got to do it because you want to make yourself better. You want to get stronger. You want to compete. Don't do it because you want people to like you. Definitely don't do it because you want money. Don't do it for girls because they ain't really gonna show up either. Don't do it for any of those reasons because those are external things that can be removed and taken away from you.
I love that. I'm gonna write that down. Do it for what? Do it for reasons
Do it for reasons that can't be taken away from you.
that can't be taken away from you. Yeah, I like that way of putting it. So like with boxing, what can't be taken away from you?
You can't take away the sense of satisfaction that I get from learning a move or successfully executing something. You can't take away from you can't take from me the health that I developed and the strength. I can get out of shape. I mean, it's possible, but it's gonna be really hard between the way my metabolism revs now and the way I look at food and in general our lifestyle. It's gonna be very hard. You can't take that away from me. You can't take away the grit that I developed. That is going nowhere. The same mentality. In fact, the reason I ended up taking on a math heavy discipline like physics is little background. I was a horrible math student in high school. I failed like most of my math class. I got like high C's, low C's, high D's. not good at math, had written that off entirely, tried calculus in college the first time I went because I thought I was supposed to, did horrible at that, had zero confidence in math, and I had a fixed mindset. It wasn't until I watched myself get better in boxing that I said, wow, I can learn stuff, yo. Like I can really do this. I am not limited by the my initial starting point, which is something I think I came up with. And boxing gave me that. It changed me to a growth-based mindset. I think now I tell people all the time, that the most powerful belief you can have is that given enough time, you can accomplish anything. And I got that from boxing.
So what attracted you to physics?
So it's funny, man. I was when I decided I was going to go back to school, I made the decision based on the highest paying majors at the time, right? And physics is not the highest paying major, but we'll get into that. But all of them had math in common. And then I looked at like employee satisfaction, and I think the top 15 jobs in employee satisfaction all had math in common. So I was going to go back to school for mathematics. That was the goal. And I was going to do that because I also figured I'd have to work and miss lab science and stuff like that. So I wasn't going to do a science. I enlist in the Army. I go through, and my MOS in the military is a 94 Alpha, which is like land combat electrical specialist. And I have to go through this 6-week course at Fort Lee, Virginia, BMAT, basic mechanic and electronic theory. And I'm like, oh, this is really, really cool. I think this is what I want to do. And so I looked for an electrical engineering program. To get into an electrical engineering program, you have to take, 2 semesters of calculus, physics, chemistry, all that, right? So I take the physics class, and in the first semester of physics, we do an experiment with projectile motion, which is just motion of an object under no other forces but the initial force and gravity pulling it down. And we do that, and I run my calculations, and I make my predictions based on a formula where the projectile is going to land. And don't you know, it landed where I said it was going to land. And I said, whoa, this is like magic. This is what I want to study instead. So I found a school, Duquesne University here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They have a dual degree program where I would get my physics degree from Duquesne and my engineering degree from Swanson at Pitt, the school of engineering. And I was going through that program, and in about the third year, I started having some success online in terms of not just the traffic, but the money I was making. And I said, it looks like I'm kind of good at this. And I knew what I wasn't going to do. I knew I wasn't going to end up working in a lab. I knew that I wanted some freedom. I always liked the idea of being able to work, be location independent. So I said, let me pour my heart into this writing thing, which meant I had to, the original program was going to take 5 years, but I took some of the credits I had in my in the EE part, transferred that over, and finished out some physics classes, and then I just took my physics degree and left. But that's how I ended up in physics. It wasn't the original goal, but then when I saw how that worked, I was like, oh, so this I think, and I think that's what I was after the whole time, which was an understanding of the universe, but also, because I think in terms of it got to be practical. I looked at the salary ranges for physics, and the range was huge. It was like starting salary was like 60 to 90,000, and it wasn't until I was like almost done with my degree that I learned what that is. There's no job physicist, right? They just end up in different and very different backgrounds. Software engineers, teachers.
A lot end up in Wall Street.
Wall Street, yeah. I had a buddy who ended up going to work at a firm there. So there are tons of options, and that's why the salary range is so great. And what I would do eventually, if I did something with my degree, I'd become a teacher. I'll never become a teacher. They can't pay me enough, but I'd do that because I really enjoy teaching, and there's something really uniquely satisfying about seeing somebody be clueless and think they can't do a thing, and then because of my instruction, where other instruction failed, they get it, and they're like, okay, I understand. And I think that's why I got so much satisfaction out of private tutoring.
And so then you start getting into this Twitter, social media stuff. What's the kind of it's what I call the spokes and wheel approach towards making money, whereas you have something at the wheel, like let's say internet / influencer, and then there's all these spokes like YouTube channel, public speaking, books, blog, affiliate marketing. Those are the spokes around that wheel. What's kind of like the way you make a living now?
So a few ways. So one, there's like the books still sell greatly. I'm like very very impressed, happy about that. Like every month it's an extra like $2,000 to $3,000 from Amazon and just goes into my account. And that's
And by the way, you self-published, which is an important lesson here because that's $2,000 or $3,000 more per month than many regularly published authors make, and most people don't
yeah.
know that.
You know, I'm actually working on a proposal for my third book because I'm gonna try and get a publisher this time. And I was like, I'm just doing the research into the stats, and I was like, wow, I've done okay, because
Yeah.
a lot of books don't sell that many copies at all. But that goes to show the power of like really being there and understanding marketing principles and building an audience and everything like that, and developing your own platform. We live in the internet era now. If anyone really wants it, you got to build a platform. It can take a while. I've been at this 8 years, 7, 8 years now. But once you have it, it's there. And then you funnel it off to your email list or other platforms, Instagram or YouTube. Point is, you build a platform. But that's one way I make money is through my books that are published on Amazon. And then I have the guides and courses that I have I use Gumroad as a platform, but those are a little more expensive, but they teach hard skills, and I'm a big believer in charging to learn the hard skills, the soft skills, whatever, man. I just enjoy discussing those, and I can give something back. That's why Sober Letters, I think I only make $4, not even $4 per each copy, compared to my Twitter guides. That's a minimum of 50 I'm going to make for each one I sell, and I'm good at it. And that's what's important. People can come look at my social media and go, this guy knows what he's talking about. Okay. So there's that. There's the gods and the books. And then I've gotten really comfortable with taking on gigs for people, whether it be, writing tweets. I'm a very proud grower of accounts, ghostwriting their tweets. I never divulge my clients, but I'm very good at this too. Very good at that. And also, I'll write copy, for guys, or I'll clean up their letters and things like that, or do consulting. So it's a nice little operation going on here. I'm really having a lot of fun with the operation.
And the courses are doing well?
The courses are doing great, because here's the thing. I never wanted to be a launch kind of guy, right? I understand the power of launches. They have quite literally changed my life. But the main model for me is to drive traffic through to my site, so it's passive. I am much more interested in making $300 to $400 a day than 6 times a year, having to really burn through my list, burn through my followers who might not be interested in seeing the heavy promotion.
Right.
And yeah, making a decent chunk there, but then I have to do the work of running the launch and being present, when everything about me is kind of to developing this hands-off approach. So writing a book and putting it on Amazon, that makes sense. That fits. Making these courses, that fits. Even running a lot of these accounts, and I don't run that many because there's a lot of.
It's like a little agency that you have.
Yeah, and I'm always looking, for anybody who would be like interested in doing the work. But what I found, one, I really enjoy it, like to the point where I'm like, I don't really want to hand off this part or get any help, kind of. And two, you got to have a knack, because here's what I'm learning: is I write in different voices for different brands that some are completely different than anything I do. You have to be able to put yourself in the heads of someone who don't, or of people who don't think like you, and you have to communicate to people who don't think like you initially. They think like the person they're following or interacting that you're writing on their behalf, and you have to do it so effectively that you achieve a similar result that you get as if you were writing for yourself to your audience. That is a rare skill, and that's not. I don't know if that's natural or developed. I just know I can do it, and I figured out how to profit from it, and I'm really really happy about that.
And are your clients doing well? Are they achieving the
Yep.
results that they had hoped for?
Yep, and the cool thing about this kind of eat what you kill business, look, if they're not getting the results they hope for, they're going not only going to let you know explicitly, you're just not going to get paid. They're not going to renew.
I mean, the eat what you kill philosophy is so important because it's just it's a different way of living, and people are afraid of it without realizing it's actually it's stressful, but so is working a regular job. But it's stressful, but then it's diversified. So something like a pandemic could happen and you still have all your things. Maybe it even gets better.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's funny. This has been non-effectual for me, and I hesitate to say I am doing better because of it, but I'm having my highest earning year, and it just happens to be the year of the pandemic. So maybe correlation, maybe causation, who knows? But when you live this life, there are no safety nets, which is cool. There's no backup. You got to learn a lot, but it's worth it. But you got to know if it's for you. I think there are some people doing it who it's not for them. They're just doing it because they think they should do it because everyone they see on social media is doing it. I have a friend who's a high earner, and she's in the pharmacy industry, and she said to me one day, she goes, I really respect everything you're doing, but I just don't want to do all that by myself. I'd much rather just show up to work. And that's cool. You got to know
Yeah.
yourself. There is a path of success for every personality I find, but you have to know your personality. You have to know yourself, because the last thing you want to do is end up on this side of things, and you ain't got the temperament or the stomach for risk, because this will keep you up all night.
Well, you say something in one of your books that one way to find your passions, and I'm a strong believer in this exact concept, which is look at what you were really interested in when
When
you
you
were
were 10,
10. Now,
yeah.
I've always said 12, but 10 seems good enough as well. And I think that's really true. And I think people ignore that because they think, oh no, I was interested in like comic books and superheroes. But I always tell people age what you were interested in.
Hmm.
There's some way in which that concept aged that you can still do it. Like if you were interested in sports, you could maybe do something professionally with fantasy sports, or write a column about it, or run a league, or make an app, or whatever. That's just an example, but I think that's really true about exploring all these areas. That if you were interested in it at 10, it's going to age, and you'll still be interested in them.
Absolutely. And I think we have a fear. I think a lot of people have a fear of seeing that, like, what can they do? Okay? What can they do that is different than a lot of people around them? Because there's a lot of, I mean, just I will call it invisible, pervasive peer pressure to follow the route of, you go to school, get a job,
Right.
maybe you get married, maybe you don't, right? And in these days, who knows? But it's a pressure to conform. And when you decide you're gonna go another way, it's like we were saying, we were talking about earlier, that that non-support, we'll just call it non-support, not anti-support, but non-support, a lot of times you get. And people are like, you know what? I like this tribe and I need this tribe, so I don't think I'm gonna disown this tribe. And they fall back into it. And if you're not built naturally rebellious or take a risk, or you don't have people around you to support you, I will fully acknowledge how. I mean, it's got to be very difficult. Imagine if you had no supporters at all, and it wasn't naturally part of you this way to just take risk, and you were like, but I want to do it, and no one around you kind of supported that. That's a big leap you have to take, and I don't think a lot of people can do it or will
Well,
do it.
what are small ways to get out of your comfort zone? Like, what's if somebody's listening to this and saying like, well, I just want to do one little thing. I'll try to get out of my comfort zone today. What should I do?
Oh man, so the best thing you can do if you are stuck in a place of comfort, look at something that you want to change. And a lot of times they don't have a visible, like other people will see, wow, that's different. And for most of us, that is our physical appearance, whether it be our level of fitness or our level of fashion, or if you're like on point there somehow, add an accessory somehow like a tattoo or whatever, right? It's not a big deal. But you do these little things, and you get to see one what happens when you change. That you change how people respond to you, and you get comfortable with that, because what a lot of our fear of change is how we're going to be perceived, whatever. But if you go and put some muscle on, it's like, wow, okay, people look at me, I lost some fat, oh wow, people see that, and I feel different, and I made this change, now I've got changes. Okay, I usually dress like a slob. Yeah, people are going to notice when I dress nice the first week, but then when I've done it for 3 weeks in a row, then you're going to have to deal with another issue, which is people feeling insecure around you. But you have to learn to deal with it. There's no way around this, right? So you make these little changes in this area, and you get used to what it feels like to make shifts and do a thing differently than what you think you have, not even what you think, that you've de facto identified with. If you've always been that guy that has that doesn't work out, you become that guy that works out. And you ain't gotta stick with it forever, but you do it for 8 weeks, see what happens, see how you feel, see how people talk to you, respond to you. And now you are doing something that, because the world's gonna respond to you differently, and it's going to force you into a different level of, well, it's gonna force you out of your comfort zone. And you do it in a way that benefits you too. It's not like you go, oh, let me go like talk to some stranger and say something crazy and see what they say. Like, no, you don't know how that's going to turn out, but you do know the benefit of improving your dress, your style, your fitness, all that. Once you get used to that, then you just port it over to something else. You're like, okay, I'm used to, and you remember that feeling. It's like, okay, I remember how everyone looked at me when I went and did when I wore that suit for the first time. It's probably going to be a similar feeling when I enroll in this class and I'm like the oldest guy there. But you're doing it because you want to get something out of it, and you got to remember that, and you just deal with it. I mean, because I didn't. I mean, I dealt with it, but I wasn't like freaked out. I was the oldest guy in all of my classes because I didn't go back to school until I was 28. I was the oldest guy in all my classes by easily 10 years. I mean, there are references I just didn't have, man. I didn't even know what Hinge was. People were talking about that. It's like, okay, new date night, check, got it. Right? So someone, they made fun of me because I didn't know how to use a PowerPoint once, but they were being sweet. They taught me how, and I figured out what to do. But
Did you ever feel like, hey, I could just crush any of you kids?
well,
I could smash you in two?
I never no, because they weren't mean, but it was interesting, some of the conversations we'd have, because they get a glimpse into the future, right? I mean, they go, okay, we just talk different things, and you realize that you have a lot more in common than you have than you're different than people, even across a whole decade of
Yeah.
life. So back to the main point, really these little steps that change you positively in a way you get a benefit from, and seeing how the world responds to you when you do that first, that gets you used to a different response. And then you can just transmute that to different things, and just remember how you dealt with it there. You develop strategies, which is like, focusing on yourself really helps at first, because that's what you're trying to do. But then you put your mind somewhere else. And one thing that helps me when I'm in an uncomfortable situation, I like to think about how uncomfortable the other person's got to be, and then I try to go, okay, well, if I'm uncomfortable having this conversation, then I know you got to be like dying. That's how I see everything. And then that reminds me that I'm the
That's
one,
good.
in control. I'm the one putting them on their back foot, kind of deal.
And I like the idea of first trying things out in the outside the comfort zone that regardless are good for you, as opposed to just kind of like random, like you say, like the typical thing to go up to a stranger and talk to them and blah blah blah. But I like that idea of first try and get out of your comfort zone, but in comfortable ways, like
Yeah.
work out a little more, or eat a little better, or wear a tuxedo to work today and see what happens, and anything like that.
But people are really better or worse, they don't like to rock the boat, you know? And when you because they get comfortable in everything around them. But that's a slow death, man. And so you have to get used to not dying slow, and that's going to be a little uncomfortable for you. You got to get used to changing the stop. You got to taking a 1 mile run, you know, every day just because it's good for you.
Let's not go crazy.
Yeah, let's
Like
not.
a 1 mile run. That's too much for me. No, I bet I could probably handle it. I don't know. I'd have to build up. But I asked my daughter. My daughter just she's 18 and she wanted to help me do podcast research. And so you're the first person I asked her. I just threw your name at her. I didn't give her any background or anything, and she sent me a bunch of questions. And this one question I thought was really good, which is, she says, "How does your interdisciplinary expertise help you when you're learning?" She specifically said, "How does your interdisciplinary expertise allow you to excel? For example, is there any way being a professional boxer has helped you in the chess or social media world or vice versa?" Good question, Molly.
That is a fantastic question, right? So I think what happens is that I learn a certain number of supporting skills. So let's just start out with the big elephant in the room. Punching people in the face has not made me better at physics, and solving differential equations has not made me any better at chess. Okay, directly. But the
Right.
supporting skills, they're what made a difference. For example, in boxing, I had to learn because when you're coming up as an amateur, um, and as a professional, a lot of times you have to get people to come see you fight because the show needs to support itself, and they put fighters on who can sell tickets and get people to come. So you got to be likable. You got to be interesting, and what you're doing a lot of times, you're asking someone to give up 30 minutes to an hour in travel to get to an event where if you do your job correctly, it's not going to really last more than 5 minutes, if that, right? And they came for you. That is, imagine being that likable as a whole. You got to learn to build a fan base, and you have to do it. Otherwise, you're not going to survive very long on the local circuit, and they're going to throw you in deeper sooner than you need to be. And if I'm not too clear on this, when you are supporting, when fighters get paid, they get paid a purse, and that comes from the tickets sold on the local show. If you don't sell enough tickets, what's going to happen is that someone with a backer, usually someone really good, much better than you, that's how they got a backer, they're just going to use you to build this guy up. And you are, and matchmakers are good. They don't really make mistakes. They know you're going to lose, short of a big surprise, and then you ruin your career. So if I wanted to have any chance of succeeding, I had to figure out how to be able to build a following. How, funnily enough, that crosses over into social media. Okay, on a different skill set, I can't think of anything that trained my mind better for communication and precise language use than lab reports in physics, because there are a lot of terms we just use interchangeably in colloquial speech that there's a big difference. There's a big difference between current and voltage, and the average person doesn't think about that when they think about electricity, right? Speed up versus your acceleration versus velocity, two different things. And if you just use whatever one, you'll make a mistake. So I learned to be a really precise communicator from physics, and that's crossed over into my writing. In fact, I don't have any of it up anymore, but you can actually see the evolution of my writing, and a really big part of that was I started the blog before I was enrolled in my program. Going through it because I was doing, writing work, breaking down American journals of physics articles and making sure I understood them so other people could understand them and understand the points I was arguing. That made me a better writer for other things not related to science. The ability to sit and break down problems and really sit and work. I mean, some of these mechanics, we'd have 10 problems in mechanics, and it would take realistically 5 to 7 hours to work these problems out. And to sit there and see it, visualize it, come up with an equation, solve it, check it, make sure it was right, collaborate with other students and all that. So now I'm learning not just a solo skill, problem solving, and how to study, which I applied to fit chess, but I'm also learning again, or at this point, refining my ability to work together and collaborate, which has really helped me in my social media. So all these things really come together. The supporting skills that make you good at one thing, they tend to have applications elsewhere.
Right. And you call them supporting skills. I call them meta skills. It's like this is almost the language you need to speak to learn something. This is like a meta language
Hmm.
that of learning. And the same techniques are going to apply to physics. Some of them will apply to chess, boxing, social media, writing, and whatever else you do. Like it's the same kind of disciplines, grit. Some things you need a teacher, some things you need repetition, some things you need to experiment, and you'll instinctively start to know better and better the more interdisciplinary things you study.
Absolutely. You know, one one thing I'm a big fan of thinking about is, how you do one thing is how you do other things. And that's not entirely true, but it's true enough for you to make some useful predictions and from those do some, pretty good work. Like the big thing I talk about is how boxing changed my mindset from fixed to growth. And that was a big weakness, and I never encountered it because I was a smart kid and I didn't have any problems until I had a problem, mathematics. And then I was like, forget it. I can't do it. This isn't for me. Boxing changed that, man, because I wanted to be good at fighting. Like, so I was going to do what it took, and I put a lot of time into it. And when I sat and reflected on it, I said, wow, I came into this sport and I was like, I mean, you can use videos, man. No footwork, awful. People around the city, like I had a kind of a rap. It's like a guy that couldn't really fight, but just knock people out. And then I developed and learned these skills. And I said, okay, if I can do that there with something as difficult as boxing, uh, there should be no problem with mathematics or chess, right? So that's how that helps. And now, I really don't. I'm not intimidated about learning a thing. Right now, I'm in this program. I'm in a few programs where I'm really trying to push my Spanish fluency up to a B2 level. I've got like functional, like you could drop me off in the airport and I won't end up with a bag of cocaine in Colombia kind of deal, Spanish. But I'm not as comfortable as I want to be. But I learned the principles of how to learn from many other things.
It's funny. I want to learn Spanish, but I have a fixed mindset when it comes to languages. I just don't seem to be good at language, but maybe I'll give it another try. There was one metaphor I wanted to bring up. You were talking about that one fight you had earlier where you were jabbing a lot, and that gave you confidence that you could keep him at bay while he used all his energy, and eventually you'd win. Like you'd find your moment and he'd be all worn out from trying to knock you out because you've just been jabbing and keeping him at a distance, and then you'd find your moment and take it and you'd win. Do you remember that fight?
Yeah.
And so it reminds me. This is just a random thing, but an analogy in chess. There was a match in like 1985 between the British champion Nigel Short and the U.S. champion Lev Albert. And I remember playing through that match, and Nigel Short won like 9-1. He like crushed the U.S. champion, and all he would do every game is he would just like attack the queen with a pawn, attack the queen with the knight, attack the queen with the bishop. He just kept annoying him and annoying him, annoying him. And finally, just the U.S. champion, Lev Albert, would just collapse every time. Just kind of like Nigel Short would do these jabs, these tactical little jabs, just annoying him until finally he'd push him into a weaker position and then he'd dominate. And I think there's something to this, like the power of annoyance, like keeping people, that's how you kind of keep in control. Like even like, I don't know, even like in persuasion, sometimes you can say like in a negotiation, sort of switching angles several times, just keeping control of the dialogue, the narrative somehow.
Yeah, if you can, if you can keep people reacting, then you're gonna be in a pretty good position. I think the most dangerous spot for anyone to fall into in any contest, whether that be physical, mental, is to be the one acting second consistently. and acting second
Yes.
without a plan, right? Reacting, not setting up something, not counterattacking, because that means that even no matter how adept your defense is, what do they say? It's like in Narcos. There's this great quote where they go, the Narcos have to keep getting lucky. We only have to get lucky once. And that is what it's like when you're on defense. You have to continually be accurate. But the person attacking you, the person on the offensive, they only got to get through once, maybe twice, and that's it. And so your job, by nature of just the rules of engagement or the way an engagement is set up, your job is just harder. So it's always better to be the cause of action than reacting to it.
Yeah, like in chess, there's comes a point, like if you're always on the defensive, there comes a point where you're like, oh my God, this is just going to be a drag for a long time right now. And I'm either going to get lucky and get out of this and turn the tables, or the likely scenario is they're just going to win. But I'm not bad enough to resign yet. So
Right. So you're just like kind of stuck there. I was just going over a game. Man, I wish I could remember who it was. It'll come to me. But it was Nimzovic and someone. It was Aaron Nimzovic, and he got the guy to resign in 23 moves because the guy played the Queen's Gambit, and Nimzovic was black, and he came out, and he eventually got him. He eventually got his knight lodged on c4 after the B pawn and the D pawn were gone. So and the white
So
bishop was
nothing
off the
could attack
board,
it.
so nothing could get it off the gob, and that eventually ran the game out. And he was just like, he resigned even though he was only pawn behind, because he's looking and he's just like, it's like you were saying about that game you were playing against
Yeah.
Kasparov. He was like, there's no way, like there's nothing I could do. And the book went through the analysis and was like, it could have continued this way, but he's still going to be down and did a few different ways. But yeah.
Here's another metaphor. This one's from physics. I'm just curious if you'll appreciate this one. So you mentioned velocity and acceleration before. So I always think of relationships in terms of calculus. So right when you meet somebody, you really like them, and the velocity, the first derivative, is positive. It's you like them at a greater distance from where you like them today as from when you like them yesterday. Like the velocity is still going up really fast. And then at some point, the velocity is still going up, but the acceleration starts to go down a little bit. So the second derivative has turned negative, and that's when problems start to happen in a relationship. Everything's still great. You still like each other more and more every day, but the acceleration, you're starting to settle into a routine, and that's the every change in derivatives from positive to negative you could still keep the relationship going, but it's a test of the relationship. So that's the calculus of relationships.
Oh yeah, first, that's a great analogy, and two, it's very similar. I think I have the post on my site, or I wrote it to my newsletter, the calculus of happiness, and I talked about how the first derivative, the change in your position, that is just making progress. And I was saying that happiness is not a location, but it's a derivative. It's a rate of change. When you make progress towards something, that is happiness. When you lose something, when the first derivative is negative, that is sadness. That is, when you don't feel so good. And then the second derivative of position, I was talking about, that is like how euphoric you are, like how much of an impact that happiness makes. And then the second derivative is like, how quickly you get down in the dumps, and really does it keep you down or hold you down. It was, but the whole idea of the rates of change, these states of being, whether they be dependent on another person or yourself, they're not locations. There's no relationship where I'm like, I'll get that one and that'll be all good. It doesn't work that way.
Right, because the second derivative can't stay positive forever. And to get that addictive dopamine going, you need acceleration to constantly be positive, not just velocity. That's why it's like you could still be kind of high from either alcohol or a drug or whatever, but you need more now to have liftoff again. But I'll now make a metaphor to neuroscience. So in that rate of acceleration, that's when your dopamine is flooded. But then serotonin kind of takes over, and then you kind of have to be happy with where you are right now. No progress, but I'm just happy with now. And so acceleration has gone to zero, but you're happy because you've stayed positive.
Yeah, and that's one of the hardest things for people to grasp is that, I think the best way to live is to be content but ambitious, or rather content but not satisfied. Like, yeah, like I can look around and be very pleased with what I've done and really like the location that I'm in, and everything about my life is something to be grateful for and express gratitude. But then but I have to reconcile that with the drive to achieve more, and that has to be based on something. It can't be based on lack, because you don't lack anything, right? At least not enough to be like, I need to get out there and grind. It's got to be based on something else, and that is, I think, the difference. If we want to like make an analogy, the difference between a relationship that's kind of based on like that initial like lust pool, like, I want to bang you, and then when you like each other and you're like hanging out and stuff, and you're like, okay, you're kind of cool. I could actually like spend time around you and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how I like physics analogies. So I bet you there's a book there somewhere. So
Probably.
the philosophy of physics. But look, Ed, where do you want people to find you? EdLatimore.com. Clearly, that's where your courses are and your links to all your stuff. But also, you have these great books. I would encourage people to check out. Not caring what other people think is a superpower, and Sober Letters to My Drunken Self. Both excellent books. I loved reading them. They're really great. I hope people buy them. And what else should people should check out your YouTube channel?
Yeah, the cool thing is, if anyone is born later and wants to do this internet thing and they have the name Ed Latimore, that's unfortunate, because I'm everywhere that way. My Instagram is Ed Latimore, my Twitter is Ed Latimore, my website is edlatimore.com, my Facebook is Ed Latimore, my YouTube page is Ed Latimore.
Like forever,
everywhere.
like all Ed Latimores in the future are nobodies now.
Yeah, I snagged up my name. One of the first things I learned getting into this thing was that get your name,
Yeah.
because and I did, because while my name isn't particularly common, I could see someone grabbing it and then hold me hostage, certainly at this point. But now I have everything. So
Well, what's your next thing? Like, so you're learning Spanish, but what's the next career thing you think that you're gonna?
the next career thing is, I'm right now I'm working on the proposal for a book deal, and that I think is because I'm always looking at like, how can I continue to get more reach, and with that reach, get more people, and also make more money to sustain my dream and all that. And I think that a book deal is the natural step for me right now with everything I'm doing, because I've done the self-publishing thing, and apparently I've had some strong success with that too, based on the numbers. So now I want to try and push myself into a more mainstream light with a book backed by a major house, and we'll see how that goes. I certainly think, from what I understand, I have a strong enough platform to at least sit at the table and have that conversation. Whether I'm able to come away with what I think I can get or what the agent thinks they can get is a totally different
What do you want to
story.
write about? What's the topic?
The topic right now, so the working title is The Crucible Effect, and that is, how to change your perspective about hard things until, trying, but I'm still working on that subtitle. But the basic idea is, I look at some of the things that I went through in boxing and growing up and sobriety, and how each of those was spurned by a difficult event, or I had to work through a difficult one. And at the same time, while I'm working through it, I've got to change my perspective on it. If for example, if I'm looking at my upbringing and the violence that I encountered, if I let that drag me down and become depressed, that's no good. And also, if I fall into that to survive, that's no good. So instead, I need to change my perspective and instead look at it as a thing to to force me to become better with negotiation. Like at my heart, I'm a negotiator because as weird as it's going to sound, I'm not a fan of violence at all. Like I don't want to fight anybody. Certainly not. And in that environment, it's a lot crazier. So the book is about changing your perspective on challenging things so that they become beneficial to you.
This is so important, particularly in this environment where so many people have to like shift careers, shift industries, shift interests if necessary, and then learn how to succeed in these new interests. I think this is such an important and pivotal idea. So I think it'll be very successful.
Yeah, and as I continue to polish it up, I have a better pitch and all is because I still I haven't perfected my elevator pitch of it yet because I'm still in the designing phase. But I've done you've done publishing through a house before, so
Yeah.
the proposal done. I've identified the similar books. I've written the chapter outlines. I've put together kind of my media profile wherever I exist in different places, and so now I'm just gonna, the two big things. Oh, my overview and bio, kind of like why you should, care about who I am and what I've done, and now the next thing for me is to write the 3 sample chapters as recommended, and also to come up with a strong pitch. So the next time someone goes, it's I can go, okay, so it's like this and blah 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 blah. Pretty much what we did just now, but even sharper.
Yeah, and I think also really important is not only the platform, and I do think you have probably the more than enough of the platform, but the fact that your platform comes from multiple sources. So like there's a boxing component to your platform, there's the social media component to your platform. There might be other components, people who like you for social media, but other people who like the self-help aspect, because those are 2 different areas. So I think it's like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan has this audience from MMA, from sitcom, from stand-up,
Right.
From Fear Factor. Or like for me, when I was building up my social media, I had like 20 years ago, I was a writer in the finance space. Then I was a writer in the tech or entrepreneur space. Then I was more like on the self-help side. Then I was a podcaster. So I was able to bring in all these different groups, and that kind of together builds like one group, which is what you've done. And then it's an easier way for the word to get out when you have a book.
Yeah. So right, that is exactly how I think about it, and the challenge, which is fun because I never really sat and dissected myself this way. The challenge is putting together the best way, or rather presenting that in the best way possible, which is going, okay, look, I am this guy, and I've got, like you said, these people built up here, and I think that's kind of how I have it segmented out. Like, here's everything from boxing, here's everything from sobriety, here's everything from learning/leadership. For whatever reason, the trader sector of the world, I've been on a few podcasts related to trading and professional poker, and I think it's because I talk a lot about risk and making calculated decisions the correct way, and also the stoicism aspect of keeping your emotions in check when things don't go right, even though the odds said they should, but you're only playing the odds. It's not a guarantee, kind of deal. So there's a big enough audience there, and I think my job is just going to be to make sure they understand that and see that.
I think that sounds great. I think I'm a buyer. I'll blurb the book. Let me blurb the book when it comes out.
I'll keep you in mind for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and look, Ed, come on the podcast again. This was great. I know you've spent a lot of time. I really appreciate it, and come on anytime, and we'll just hang out and chat and just have the recorder on.
Awesome, man. You are even cooler in person, man. I'm a big fan of your books, by the way. I didn't want to.
Thank you. I appreciate
choose
that.
yourself is really particularly the idea, write down 10 ways to make money. I thought that was every day that just light switch, man, really changed my life.
Yeah, that for me too. So that makes 2 of us. But again, thanks so much. We share so many common interests. I could talk forever. So we'll definitely do this again.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming on.
The McNugget Buddies are back. But this time, they got a fresh look as part of the new Current Frost Box at McDonald's. We're talking all new buddies, dressed head to toe in the freshest fits, All designed by the artist Kerwin Frost. So when you order the Kerwin Frost box with your choice of 10-piece McNuggets or a Big Mac, you'll get one of the flyest McNugget buddies to go with it. Think you can collect them all? Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time while supplies last.